keeping on. And so remember that the Hebrew writer, now I may say Hebrew writer, I may say Paul. The scholars say we're not really sure who wrote Hebrews. I personally think Paul did. So I may say Paul occasionally. I may say the Hebrew writer occasionally. But I think the writer of this book is writing to second generation Christians who can still see the temple, and they may even be still sacrificing there, and they're confused about Judaism and Christianity. And maybe they're even trying to mix it all together. That's what the Judaizing teachers were trying to get them to do. But in chapter 10, Paul says, don't forsake the assembling of yourselves together as the manner of some is, but exhorting one another, and so much the more as you see the day approaching. What he's saying is, we need encouragement for this race we're in. And the way we get that encouragement is by coming together. So don't forsake those assembling. And then in chapter 11, he begins to tell us about people who have been there, people who have run the race, people who were successful. And they are now our examples about how we can do the same thing. So they are passing the baton, if you will, to us in this race. And now we're running. And they say, I believe that you can make it because I made it. And because I made it, you can do. You just got to keep running. You cannot stop. You cannot quit. Now just think about some of the people that are mentioned in Hebrews chapter 11. We call that Faith's Hall of Fame. And so you look at the people that Paul mentions. It's Abel and Enoch and Noah and Abraham and Isaac and Jacob and Joseph and Moses. You think you have a hard job? Check out Moses. You think you have a troubled life? Check out Job. You think you have a tough family background? Talk to Joseph about that. These are people who have told us their stories and said, I kept on running. I kept on going in the race. And so chapter 11 tells us the power of personal stories. Greg talked about that a little bit in the communion message today. Telling the personal stories. And you can see it in athletics. You get a great athlete and you say, what was the moment when you reached that victorious moment in your life? How did you do that? And then you can see the excitement, the gleam in their eye as they tell you about how they just kept going and going until they achieved that win, until they achieved what they were aiming for. And so that's what this great cloud of witnesses in chapter 11 is for. It's to encourage us to keep on. They tell us to stay in the race and to endure. And we know it's tough, but don't stop. Never give up. Winston Churchill, the great Prime Minister of England, was asked one time to speak at a commencement to the seniors who were graduating. And I don't know if it was a college or I don't know that part of the story. But I know that after all the introductions and all the things were said and he was introduced, he stood up and this was his commencement speech. Never, 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 never give up. And he turned around and he sat down. That was the message for that day. And that's my message today. We never give up. And friends, I confess to you, I don't know how it's to be done with all of us being comfortable with it, but we need to share our stories. We need to, if I know your story, that will encourage me and that will motivate me to keep on going in my life when I learn what you've gone through and what you've done to get where you are in your relationship with God and how you never gave up. That's going to encourage and motivate me. We need to know one another's stories. I think that's one of the great parts of the His Needs, Her Needs class. Back in the 1990s, Kathy and I led 8 interactive classes of His Needs, Her Needs. It's a great marriage class. Now they've changed the name of it now to Dynamic Marriage. But it's an 8-week interactive thing. And one of the things that we got out of that, we got a little bit of something that we couldn't get anywhere else, and that was the stories of each other. And I think that was the power, that was the dynamics of that class, was getting to share with one another how we were doing in our marriage. And so this great cloud of witnesses in chapter 11, they're telling their stories, and Paul is then here in chapter 12 telling us what they were saying. He said, first of all, they're telling us it is a difficult race. Look at verse 1. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us. It's a difficult race. It's a long race. It's a frustrating race. And there's no way to run this race without being scarred and hurt. I think maybe on your outline I left an R out and it says scared and hurt, but that's okay. It means the same thing. There's no way to run this race without being scared and without being scarred and without being hurt. Let me tell you something, friends. There is no system to believe in. There is no person to believe in. No matter how devoted to Jesus Christ you are, you will not get past suffering in this life. Jesus suffered, didn't he? He may have suffered worse than any of us will ever suffer. But there's just no way to get past it. Paul talked about all the things that he went through in 2 Corinthians. In verse 4, he said, I'm pressed on every side. I'm perplexed. I'm squeezed on every side to the point of not knowing what to do. But he said, I didn't give up. I kept on going. I did not quit. And that's what we don't do, friends. We do not quit the race. We keep going. And Job understood that, didn't he? He understood it better than we will ever understand it. In Job chapter 1, he got the news. His family wiped out. His servants wiped out. His herds and flocks wiped out. What'd Job do? Whine and complain and cry? No. He fell down and he worshiped God. Now, a lot of people think that the book of Job is about the trial of Job. It's not. It's really about the trial of God. God is on trial in that book. Is God worthy to be worshiped even when things go bad? Job said, yes, though he slay me, yet will I trust him. Unbelievable. Job knew that he came from God naked, and he knew that he would return to him the same way. And he knew who he was, and he knew that God was the giver. God was the giver of all things. He talked about God giving before he ever talked about God taking away. And he said, blessed be the name of the Lord. You can't quit the race. Yes, it's a difficult race, but we don't quit the race. Another thing they're telling us here in chapter 12 about what they said is you need to travel light. See, look at the second sentence of verse 1. Let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles. Friends, we need to travel light because sin is heavy. The race is long and sin is heavy. It's sin that so powerfully put Jesus on that cross. You think about all the sins, all the sins that have been committed since the beginning of time, down through our time, even to the end of time, all wrapped up in one big, huge, nauseous mass heaped on the shoulders of Jesus Christ on that cross. It was a heavy load. And we need to cast off anything that hinders us. We need to cast off the sin that is heavy and weighs us down. And we need to continue in that race. If we're going to finish the race in the face of the destructive nature of sin, we're going to have to be focused. Sin lures us from every side. And so you must stay focused. You must have a one-track mind. Speaking of one-track mind, I'm reminded of a story. That's not unusual, is it? A man's in a nursing home, and 3 new widow ladies move into the home. So to each one of them he goes and he says, "So you're new? And so where did you come from? How long were you there? Why did you come here? So you're single now." Every one of them. He had a one-track mind. He was focused. "So you're single now," he would say. One theme today, friends. Stay in the race. I see so many people who quit. They quit too soon. It happens all the time. "Where's so-and-so?" "Well, he quit." "He quit? They can't quit?" No, they can't quit. I see it in families. I see it in business. I see it in schools. I see it in church. I see it everywhere. People get tired. They think it's so tough, and they quit. And it disturbs me when it happens in the family, when they quit on the family. Because, friends, if we don't get our homes right, we have no message to the world. We need to clean up our homes so that we will have a message. I came out of the hills of Tennessee and I came out with this. Your word is your bond. And when you decide that you're going to do something, you do it. Your word is your bond. You do what you say you'll do, and you finish whatever you start. I read a story about a couple who had been married more than 60 years, and somebody asked them, "How in the world did you stay married 60 years?" And the bride answered this way. She said, "We grew up in a time when something was broken, you fixed it. You didn't throw it away." And that's what we do when we quit. We are throwing away something that we should be fixing. We have this myth that we get married and we live happily ever after, but it's a devil's lie. It doesn't happen. It takes commitment, and it takes staying in the race. We don't quit on our marriage, and we don't quit on the people that we love. In my retirement years, I hesitate to perform weddings. These kids, just a few years before, were renting musical instruments and going out for track and soccer and football and baseball, and then it's not long until they've got a job, and now they're walking down the aisle and going to say, "Until death do us part." And I say, leave me out of it, because if divorce is in your theology, just skip the vows. Amen? We can't quit. It disturbs me also when people quit the church. Jesus didn't quit. He went all the way to the cross, and he took those sins of yours and all of us, and he took it to the cross with him so that we could live. And you tell me you quit because somebody hurt your feelings, I want you to talk to Jesus. He didn't quit. These cloud of witnesses in chapter 11 tell us you can do it. Don't quit. Look at us. Don't give up. It's worth it. All the frustration, all the difficulty, all the struggle, all the hurt. Travel light and keep going. Keep on going. Stan Cottrell is a long-distance runner. Several years ago, he ran all the way across China, 2,000 miles. 53 weeks, averaging about 40 miles a day. 3 of those weeks, I meant 53 days, averaging 40 miles a day. 3 of the weeks of those 2,000 miles in a driving rainstorm. 1,000 of those 1,000 miles with a broken vertebra. And so with this brace that he had to wear, with feet bleeding and nerve endings bared, he wanted to stop, but then somebody would say, the people in the next village are waiting for you. And they're going to be so joyful when you come running through. And he said, I could not stop. He kept going. Have you ever felt that tug, that pull, thinking, yeah, my life does mean something. Yeah, there is somebody that would be impacted. If I go or if I come, they'll be impacted by what I do. I don't want to stop. I got to keep going. I hope you have felt that, and I hope you continue to feel it. I hope you'll stay in the race. One little girl said to her daddy, Daddy, if you go, you'll take the good out of goodbye. And that's right. You're going to impact somebody. So you got to stay in the race. There was a master pianist who came to the United States to hold concerts. At one of those concerts, a mother brought her little boy. At intermission, without her noticing, he slipped out of his chair. He slipped around and got up on the stage and got up to the piano and started playing chopsticks. The master pianist saw it, slipped over behind him, put his arms around him, and began to play a counter melody that made it just beautiful. And all the while he's whispering in the boy's ears, don't stop. Don't stop playing. Keep on playing. And they played a beautiful tune together. Now I know that sometimes in the circumstances of your life, the troubles of your life, the routines of your life, it may seem to you that it's insignificant as chopsticks in a classical concert. But God says, keep on going. Stay where you are. Stay where God put you. Stay where God wants you to be. God put you there, and one day, you're going to win the race. Now I want us to look at verse 3. Consider him who endured such opposition from sinful men. Who's he talking about? Jesus Christ. Consider him so that you will not grow weary and lose heart. In verse 2, he had said, fix your eyes on Jesus. So you consider him. Why? So you won't lose heart. And so you won't be weary. I think Paul's just saying that you can trust God to save those who believe in his son Jesus. Just keep looking at my son. Fix your eyes on Jesus, and you can trust me because I am faithful. Faithful, full of faith. He won't let you down. Back in 1980, there was a movie that came out called Ordinary People. It starred Mary Tyler Moore and Donald Sutherland and Timothy Hutton. And the story was that the elder son of the family had been killed. And the family was devastated, and it was disintegrating. The mother couldn't frame all this in her perfect world. And so she's shattered. The younger boy is guilty because he's alive and he knows he wasn't the preferred son. And the father, he's just helpless as he watches it all just disintegrate. We say, well, why did they call them ordinary people? Because they were rich. They lived in this fancy suburb of Chicago. I'll tell you why they were ordinary people. Because, friends, rich or poor, young or old, educated or uneducated, everybody is devastated and crushed by life's load when you don't know the love and grace and forgiveness of God. We can't quit. I remember a golf commercial where they showed the golf club, and they gave all the specifics and the facts. And then somebody said, blah, 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 it's all talk until you try it. Well, I'm here to tell you today, folks, that it's all talk until you trust in Jesus. It's all talk until you try it. Till you trust in Him and you keep on running the race. I'm telling you that God has always had a people. Through all time. He's had a people who trusted Him. He's had people who have run the race with Him. He's had a people who have finished the race with Him. He built His church on a rock, and it will stand. And when He comes back, He's going to take that church, because it'll still be here. And He's going to take that church, and He's going to present it to His Father as His beautiful bride. So we got to stay in the race. The poet said we are running the race that God has won. The past has lost its glory. The present voice beyond. Jesus is standing at the finish line. He's got His arms outstretched. He's encouraged me to keep running. And when I get there, He's going to embrace me. And He's going to whisper in my ear, good and faithful servant, well run. Are you ready to hear those precious words? Are you prepared to run to meet Jesus at the finish line? If not, I urge you to come to Jesus. He's calling you right now while we stand and sing together.